Oh man, here we go, here we go. still doodling, so bear with me for a moment. Ah, dear. Okay, let's see now. Leave it at that. At least we got a start here. All right. So it is Sunday evening again. Let's have a look. Where is everybody? Ah, hello. I see you. There's Necessary Truth. Hello. Good evening. Good evening, Esther. Happy to see you too. Necessary, yes. Gemmy season is here. Hello, Mr. Ross. Hello, Esther. Yes. Oh. All right, let's have a look. God. Okay. So let's have a look. I think I'm gonna go visit over here. Let's have a look. Yeah, here we are. Good evening. Hope you're all well. Thank you for visiting. Every now and again I get these feelings like, my God, I'm actually still here. We're still doing this. It's remarkable. The planets just keep whizzing around and around and around and around. The sun is doing its thing. All the other things are doing their thing. The asteroids, the comets, all the big stars that are fixed out there. Geomagnetic storms, solar flares, solar micronova, coronal mass ejections. So, yeah, somebody mentioned Gemini. Yeah, you've probably noticed a bit of a shift. I know that I have. How are we going to put this? Okay, well, let me just go back over to the stage for a moment so I can just do some illustrations. All right, so there's the astrodoodle. We'll come to that. And of course, here is my ephemeris, perfectly, beautifully illustrated and marked out for everybody. Here we are, Neptune on the cusp, Pisces to Aries. Very, very unstable, extremely unstable energy. Pluto on the cusp, heading towards Capricorn, right now still in Aquarius. Very, very unstable. Okay? There's the Neptune. Sorry, there's the Pluto. Very unstable energies. Neptune is in the critical degree right now, and Pluto is approaching a critical degree. The other thing is, of course, that we've had this shift in energy, moving away from the Taurus vibes and into the Gemini vibes. Now, of course, the Taurus vibes are still very big, but the supercharging effect of Jupiter has moved on a little bit. Let me just run through each one. So we're on the cusp here with Pluto, right? Yesterday, early, or was it even, what's today, Sunday, Saturday, like late Friday, the moon was on the cusp here as well with all these other ones. And it was, for me personally, it was a very difficult time, because with all these cusps, what I notice that happens inside of me, I get pretty rattled, because the cusps indicate the energy of this in contrast to the energy of that around the cusp point here, 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 and so on. And so for myself personally, I struggle with decision making. Oh, I'm going to do that. Oh, wait a minute, I should be doing that. Oh, if I do that, then I'm going to neglect doing this that I should have done. Oh, and it just gets very rattled, and I start, things get there. It's like static, Okay, so some sort of glitch just happened on YouTube. I don't know what it is. I hope we're still okay. Everything over here at the stage just kind of flared. I don't know what that was. I don't think we've got a solar flare going on right now. Anyway, so another thing that I've noticed is that now we're in Gemini season. The sun is in 3 degrees, Jupiter is at 0, Venus is at 2, or was it? Let me see. A couple of degrees. Here it is. Okay. So Venus is in Gemini at the 0-1 degree mark, and Jupiter is in Gemini right on the cusp, 0 degrees. So when I add in the sun in Gemini as well, which just happened, we're 4 degrees here, it's a lot of Gemini energy happening all at once, and it's kind of a shift. And let me go through my notes. So the reason I mentioned the cusps is because if any of you are feeling a sort of a dislocation, a feeling like, oh, I should be here when I'm doing that, or I should be doing that while I'm over here, and not quite getting it all sorted out, that's okay. It's to be expected in the circumstances. Let's rattle through a few things before we get on to my notes. My famous notes here. I just made a few. Okay, we'll come to these in just a moment. We've told this story many, many, many times over the last 4 or 5 years. Pluto is on the cusp of Aquarius here. It's actually retrograde at the moment, so it is seemingly heading backwards, and it's going to cross into Capricorn fairly soon. So we're at the critical degrees. The Pluto and Aquarius energy at the 1 degree mark is an indication that there's screaming loud hysteria of people all across the world demanding freedom. They want freedom from tyranny. Over here, when Pluto crosses into the 29.5 degree of Capricorn over here, this will be an expansion of the energy of desperation, of the unhealthy expression of Pluto in Capricorn, as indicated by a handful of global elites that are desperate to impose their totalitarian, tyrannical, suffocating regime across the whole of planet Earth. They've been working at it actively, very actively, for about 60 years, especially since communism was first introduced in the last century. It's now expanded all over the world. Communism is saturated the planet. And everywhere you look that's infected with communism, they have a lot of, basically, I wouldn't want to live in those places. If you're born there and you don't know anything else, then that's a different story. But since I've been very, very fortunate to enjoy high degrees of freedom in my life, the energy of Pluto in Capricorn, 29.5 degrees desperation, is terrifying to me. So what has happened is, because we're on the cusp here, we're seeing both sides of the story. And it's essentially a warlike energy and a face-off energy over here. Okay, it's the energy of freedom facing off with the energy of tyranny, communism, totalitarianism. Hard at it. And it isn't just theory or conspiracies anymore. It's fact. It's now global headlines. No escape. Of course, the mainstream media are trying to really seriously suppress it and downplay, and they don't use the kind of language that I use here. But it is starting to ooze out even in the mainstream media. So that's very bad news for the global elite. The exciting thing for we the people, common people like myself, is that we're getting our chance to reclaim our freedom, our sovereignty, our rights to be ourselves, our own unique selves in the community of humanity. So that's, to me, that's very exciting. It's going to be a 20-year journey. It's going to be very tumultuous. And while Pluto transits for the next 20 years, okay? At the same time, Saturn is over here in Pisces. It's causing immense problems for China, because China is being held accountable to all its treachery, deception, blackmail, murder, betrayal, treason, tyranny. And it's not looking good. Over here, Neptune is at the 29th degree in Pisces, the degree of desperation. And so what's happening is anything and everything across the world that has the characteristics of evil or tyranny or disease or sickness or betrayal or lies or deception, manipulation, fraud, theft, crime, perversion, it's becoming very obvious. And all the people who love that stuff, all the people who are invested in that stuff, are having a hissy fit because they're being outed, and they don't like that. The people who are infected with the tragic, sad aspects of Neptune in Pisces, 29 degrees, they thrive on invisibility, lies, betrayal, propaganda, and fraud to keep everything going in their shenanigans and their games of deception and theft against we the people. The problem is the stench of their energy is so bad. It's so bad that it's leaking out all over the world, and the elites can't stop it. It's great because you've got to reveal it to heal it. And now that we know how bad it is, and in America it's extremely bad, in China it's extremely bad, in parts of the Middle East it's very bad, in parts of Africa and South America, Central America, it's very, very bad. Parts of Europe, well, I mean, basically the whole world is infected with this stuff. So what do you do about it? Well, sanitization, cleaning things up. How do we do that? Well, it's a long, hard road. Anyway, it's going to be dealt with. You got to reveal it to heal it, and it is now being revealed. Thank you. Over here, we've got the pileup with Mars, North Node, and Chiron, especially Mars and Chiron together over here. It's an indication that there are billions of people across the world suffering from imprisonment and denial and deprivation of their sovereignty and their right to be themselves. These would be the people who are suffering under the elites, suffering under the tyrannical regimes, suffering under the fake things that are going on in America. All those people suffering from the Fed, things like that, they're getting fed up with it, and they're not just pissed off and angry and yelling and screaming, they're getting violent. Mars in Aries is not shy about being violent. That's why you've noticed that there's enormous amount of violent eruptions all across the world ever since Mars went into Aries. Thank you very much. We predicted that, of course. So, all of that stuff's happening simultaneously. Over here in Taurus, we still have enormous problems with the global financial system. Uranus is still very active there. Mercury is there, the planet of commerce and trade. We've talked about it many, many times, and again, it is becoming very obvious that there's something very, very, very wrong with the global financial system. There are power struggles across the world. Who has the most important currency? Who has the most important financial economic model? And so on and so on. The American free market capitalist system is completely corroded, eroded, and corrupted. The CCP totalitarian model is already heavily corrupted, and they are imploding live, real time, economically, financially, spiritually, politically. So again, it's all highly predictable. I think the news items, and you could see it very clearly on the screen here in the chat when everybody came in. Hey, what's going on? Gemini stuff. Well, the sun just moved into Gemini a few days ago. Venus has already just entered Gemini, and Jupiter just entered Gemini today. So that's a lot of Gemini vibes. For me personally, everything gets a little bit, it's like having too much coffee or something, or maybe you had a soda with caffeine in it, or an energy drink or something, and you kind of liked it, and then you thought maybe I'll just have another one, and things just get even more jittery. Anyway, with the Gemini vibe, a lot of it is to do with global commerce and trade at the individual level, and also global communications at the mass level. And so what people are discovering is that the world is having a massive conversation with itself, okay, through the social media, more than ever before. Personally, I am stunned and amazed by the conversations that I've been observing recently with some of my favorite news pundits and news sources and everything. It is just amazing. The mainstream media, which is heavily corrupted, is struggling against the purity and the simplicity of truth. Simple truth. And people like the truth because everybody knows where they stand. When people speak the truth, and they live in the truth. The power of the spoken word. And so this clash, it's another clash energy between truth and lies. Now we're not really there yet, but I'm going to illustrate a couple of things here. Over the next year, Jupiter's going to move through Gemini, okay? And very soon we're going to have a clash between Jupiter and Neptune. So we're going to see a lot of exposure of lies, deception, and betrayal exploding across the global media, and how the mainstream media that is owned by the elites are going to try and control and manipulate and turn it all into propaganda, whereas we the people here, working in harmony together, we're going to be asking and demanding the truth in communications and language. So that's going to be another interesting tug of war here. It's going to look like a fat red mark here. Okay? It's coming up. Well, we're not there yet, but it's going to be certainly coming up here. When we get to the tippy end of the Jupiter season, of the Gemini season here, the Sun will be over here, Venus will be over here. And when we get there, we're not there yet. I'm just giving you a heads up. When we get there, you're going to see this explosion of, I don't know if it's going to be really hostile, but an explosion of, let's say, propaganda versus truth. In other words, plain spoken language, common sense, reality versus propaganda, which is basically lies, deception, betrayal, fraud, scams. Okay? So just prepare for that in advance. A lot of people across the world now are getting scammed and hacked for billions of dollars by very, very corrupt, evil, nefarious people. So you've got to watch out for that. All right, here we go. So I'm just going to put this aside for now. Come to that in a minute. So I just wanted to go through my little notes. Gemini energy vibes. So we got the Sun, Venus, and Jupiter. Jupiter's going to really, really ramp up the vibes of Gemini in terms of the energy of polarity and opposition, because Jupiter rules Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the opposite to Gemini. So there's going to be this energy, okay, the opposition vibes, and it's good. That's actually a good thing, because we need that. We need the truth to be outed. Venus will soften the language and make it smoother and more harmonious while people engage in a massive global conversation. Towards the end of Gemini season, we're going to see massive squares to the Pisces vibes, okay? So just heads up about that. Right on the cusps there. Very, very unstable. Couple of notes that I just wanted to bring out here. Again, a lot of revealing for the healing. We all know now, if you watch what I watch or learn what I learn, we now know about the agenda of the elites. They want complete globalized communism, right? That's their plan. And it's very difficult to do, because more and more people are realizing that's the plan. And more people are realizing, wait a minute, I don't like that plan. I don't want to be a part of it. The only people who like it and want it are the elites who profit from the exploitation of we the people. So it's a tiny, tiny number of elites, especially the global banking elites and the global corporate elites. And all the big things like big tech, big media, big pharma, big agro, big transpo, big communications, big data, big war. They all benefit from the globalized communist agenda. We the people suffer. We get farmed. We get turned into debt cows, debt slaves. Not good. So in reality, what's happening is we're now fully aware that the United Nations and all their sub-NGOs, the non-government organizations, a lot of it funded by the United States dollar, shockingly, plus the CCP, plus the cartels in Mexico, they are all operating in unison. It involves billions and billions of dollars as part of their grand plan to flood this place where I live, where some of us live, with people from everywhere else. Some people call it the Great Replacement. It's not a theory anymore. It's actually happening. The same plan is already happening over here in Europe. And I've been reading a lot of stories about what's happening in Europe. And in some ways for Europe, it's too little too late. They're starting to realize that all the mass mass migration and immigrations that have come from a lot of countries that are nothing to do with Europe, have flooded into Europe, and the cultures are completely different. You've got these completely alien cultures that have no correlation with British culture or Northern European culture. It's just a massive clash of cultures. And what's bizarre is the migrant population that have entered this area are trying to impose their toxic culture on the pre-existing culture over here. Even though the people who are moving from here to here are actually trying to escape their toxic culture. So how insane is that? I think it's absolutely crackpot. Again, it's now become global awareness, full-on awareness, that Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Northern Europe have become heavily compromised and infected by these folks over here, okay, and the UN elites, these folks, okay, so that we now have on record, proven record, that the massive operations going through here and through here are all paid for by these folks to get the nationals from here, shoveled into the United States, so that the United States now is flooded with millions of people who really have highly, let's say, contradictory views, feelings, cultures. And it's not just a coincidence, it's deliberate, because the goal of these people here, the elites, these folks here, is to completely destroy this. This is enemy number one. And lo and behold, inside here, the biggest enemy that we have is right here. Okay? That's the folks in Washington. That includes the federal government today, and the United States Federal Reserve banking system, which spreads all over the world, plus all the sub-agencies like the CIA, the FBI, the Fed, the NSA, all of that federal stuff has now become enemy number one. The enemy is within. Okay? Please understand that. You might not feel it right now, because despite the problems that I see happening in our beautiful place, there's a lot of people here who are completely oblivious. They are willfully blind. They don't want to know about the problems. They don't want to deal with it. They just want to enjoy their comfort. You have to remember, this place became very, very prosperous, which translated into very, very comfortable in a matter of, like 120 years? Mind-boggling prosperity that dwarfed everything else on earth until the last 40 years. 40 years ago, everything changed when Bill Clinton introduced the NAFTA and so on. And then came in the Bushes, and then the Bushes, and then the Obamas. And that just basically shredded this place in collusion with all of these folks here. Now, inside, there are a lot of countries, the ones that I mentioned, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Northern Europe, who are starting to realize that they're already screwed. It's going to be really hard to unscrew what's happening in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Northern Europe, because a lot of the damage and the new world order has already been instituted. It's frightening. The last refuge is here. This is the last refuge, okay? If this goes down, it's going to be globalized communism for centuries to come. I'm not kidding. So, that's why I keep ranting on and on about this. So, again, with the Gemini vibes, let's go through this. I'm almost done, folks. Please bear with me, and then we'll get on. If anybody wants a reading, let me just see if anybody's booked a reading. Hold on. Sorry, I got on a Gemini roll there. I couldn't stop talking. My mouth just kept going around and round and round and round and round. So, okay. So I am open to some readings. I can handle maybe 1, 2, or 3. And we do have a reading booked. So we're going to put out the post-it note for that right now before I forget. Okay. So Mr. Ross. Okay. Mr. Ross has booked a reading for this evening. Remember, last week, Mr. Ross was the gentleman who booked a group reading for all of us. That was amazing. That was honestly a lot of fun. Thank you. All right, so I might as well run with it with the Gemini vibes, okay? The Gemini vibes, especially when you add in, when you add in the very comfortable energy vibes with Aries, soon we're going to get really bright green lines over here. We're not quite there yet, but we're going to see a lot of green over here, okay? Because the Aries and Gemini vibes get along very well, and we're going to have what are called sextiles, okay? So that's going to be an energy that is going to be speaking out. People speaking out, speaking their minds. I think it's going to get very, very frothy in the media, especially with social media and alternative social media where I like to hang out. So I like to hang out on my X, on my YouTube, on my private subscriptions where I get news, world news from WION and Al Jazeera and DW and Sky and France 24 and so on, because a lot of times I get much better news by looking outside the United States. If you try to get news from inside the United States, it's all processed through Reuters, Associated Press, ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNBC, and so on, and all the newspapers that go with it. That's all mainstream media, which is owned by basically BlackRock, Vanguard, and the elites, okay? So you can't trust them. They're basically, it's propaganda. So that's why I don't go there. I mean, sometimes it's fun to hang out, to watch. But anyway, calling things out. Calling out the fakeness. Calling out Gemini energy, calling out the fakeness. So, in other words, hey people, what's going on in Ukraine? Oh, well, we're being told that it's this, and this, and this, and it's we have to save democracy. Oh, because the bad people in Russia are destroying democracy. Okay, call it out, BS, for what it is. It's basically a freaking money laundering racket for these people, especially the U.S. Fed and the military-industrial complex, MIC plus Fed plus the stock market. Let's call it the Dow, okay? Plus all the investors and insider trading that goes with it. Okay, so let's call it out for what it is. That's what's happening in Ukraine. And who cares about all the dead bodies? That's just collateral damage. Israel and Gaza. Oh, it's all about Jews versus Arabs. Bah. They've hated each other for thousands of years. Sure. It's in some ways it's perfectly true. But what's the real agenda? Again, it goes back to these folks, the Feds, BlackRock, Blackstone, Vanguard. In Israel and the war with Gaza, it's about big oil. Because the reality is that all the people in Gaza, the Palestinians and the Hamas, they're just going to be bulldozed and killed off, obliterated by Israel. to make way for the big oil companies to move in offshore of Gaza. Right here. Right here. Well, let's put it over here. Right here. In other words, it's a land grab. In other words, the elites, the elites, there's a whole pile of them here. I haven't got room for all of them. The elites have basically made a decision. It's time to get in there. We need to clear the land. It's just like eminent domain in America, where the federal government comes in and says, we're going to take your land because we're going to build a highway. I'm sorry. I know it's very rude. We're willing to buy out your house, but if you don't move, we're just going to move you anyway. So that's what's happening over here. It's basically big oil companies working through BlackRock's different governments and their militaries to obliterate the people who are in the way. All the Palestinians down here in Gaza are basically in the way. They're basically being obliterated. There is going to be no more Gaza. There's not going to be any Palestinians or Hamas. Israel's going to obliterate them. Israel's going to completely ignore the rest of the world who is screaming, genocide, genocide. Israel doesn't care. They don't care. They're just going to obliterate until it's done. And then they're going to build their massive new oil and gas operations. Okay? Let's just call it out. Okay, next one. We've already spoken about it. The invasion is into the United States. It's not about trying to get freedom from tyranny and all of that. Yes, there are a bunch of people crossing over who are trying to escape poverty and tyranny and communism from their home. But what's really happening is the invasion and the injection of the military from these folks and here to get them inside, get them all stationed. In other words, the so-called enemies, the enemies of America. So it's going to be, basically Islamic extremists. It's going to be the CCP, Chinese Communist Party. It's going to be Mexican cartels. All of those folks who hate America, they're coming in here to fill it up with sleeper cells so that they can destroy America from within. Okay? So we already know. I was watching an amazing story. Oh, let me share that one. I was watching an amazing story about some of the Chinese coming in. It's actually with multiple different cultures. They all have their networks here inside the United States of people who are here already, and they communicate with each other on Discords and WhatsApp type apps and things to set it all up, and there's websites. And what happens is the people who are already in here illegally or semi-legally, they know all the connections and ways to manipulate the United States local governments and offices to get more Chinese or more Islamists or more Russians integrated and through and across the borders, all paid for. Here's your debit card, here's your food card, here's your hotel, here's your clothes, here's your flights, here's your automobiles, all of that courtesy of the United Nations and all their NGOs, all funded by George Soros with his ultra billions and BlackRock, Vanguard, and those guys. So the story was how insider Chinese are facilitating the new arrivals to be able to operate under the radar here in America. They can get cars, they can get a social security number, they can get welfare, they can get accommodation, housing, incomes. And one of the scams that they use is that a pre-established Chinese guy working for Uber, DoorDash food deliveries type of thing, they already have an existing account, and then they lease that account to a new arrival who basically pretends to be the lease holder, the owner of the account. And the new arrival gets a chance to make some money, and the existing arrival can collect 15% revenue. Uber apparently says they don't have a clue that this is going on. But anyway, that's just one of the many, many, many operations that's going on. It shows you how to buy guns, buy ammo, everything for all the new arrivals. So if you can imagine that, tens of millions more people here who hate us. They hate us. And they're being paid to destroy us from within. They're waiting for signals from their operators to activate their sleeper cells and create destruction. The usual thing is let's burn down some farms or some power stations or bridges and airplanes and any kind of infrastructure, telecoms, anything, to basically soften the target, make it very difficult for America to operate as a very healthy organism. So that's going on. Let's just call it out for what it is. Okay, so that's the invasion. Call it out for what it is. It's not about migration and freedom from tyranny. It is an invasion. And it's deliberate by these people, including the U.S. Fed. It's disgusting. The next thing is, again, going back to these elites, the World Health Organization, United Nations, CDC, WEF, and so on. As you know, the World Health Organization has just tried to impose its global health treaty across the world. They called it an accord because treaty sounded too stringent and legal. They wanted to make it sound like it's a really friendly group hug where everybody in the world submits to the WHO that operates right out of here over in Belgium with money from over here, of course. And they can control the world by basically saying, okay, it's an emergency. Everything is now an emergency. We got a new bug. Oh, it's bird flu. Oh, it's another bug. It's this bug or that bug. Or the meat or the chicken or the pigs or the cows or the plants or the fish or whatever it is. So the WHO can declare an emergency and tell everybody on Earth what to do and how to do it. It's not going to happen. The whole agenda is falling apart. Hallelujah. Because people are waking up and they're saying, enough people, enough countries are saying, wait a minute, we don't want to do your ridiculous game of tyrannical communism. No, we're not going to sign that BS. Okay, so that's good. That's good. I'm really happy to hear that. But you got to call it out. You got to reveal it to heal it. Now, we know what the problem is and what they do and how they do it. You have to say no. Also, let's just call it out like I did earlier. Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Northern Europe, and the UK, they're all screwed. They're all screwed. They're all heavily infected by these folks. It's almost at the point where it's too late. These folks still operate as though they look sort of like westernized free market economy democracies and so on. But it's not true. They have been overtaken and infected by these people to the point where these folks are crumbling. They've lost and given away their power because inside each of these populations, a handful of treasonous traitors have signed away the powers of these countries to these people against the people of these countries. It's really disgusting. But we also have a populist global national agenda pushback. All these problems are so big and so obvious now that enough people, there's a tipping point where enough people, in other words, we the people, are pushing back. All the farmers' revolutions over here, they are pushing back against these folks, okay? Because they're saying, wait a minute, we don't want to live off bugs, fake meat, and electric cars and solar panels and wind farms. We can't do it. It's impossible. All that stuff is fake BS because it's actually impossible to implement. So let's just call it out for what it is. We want our identity. So in other words, this agenda here, which is becoming very strong, the populist national pushback, it's happening in America as well. These folks represent this energy here, pushing back against these folks here. So on this little piece of paper, diagrammatically speaking, these folks represent the Pluto and Aquarius crowd. Okay, that's we the people, and the Mars and Aries, Chiron and Aries crowd, who want to have our sovereign selves, our freedom and our identity, the right for you to be you and for me to be me. We want that because we're realizing if we don't stand up and fight, it's going to be stolen from us. So that little line there represents this and this. This line here and all its associated demonic organizations is represented over here. Pluto, Capricorn, 29 degrees. Neptune and Pisces, 29 degrees. And so these two forces are like that. And it's going to amplify and amplify and amplify over the next 20 years. And eventually, I believe that goodness will prevail and the evil will be squeezed out. But it's going to be a long, tough war. There you go. I've said what I have to say. I'm just going to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get myself a beverage. I'm kind of parched, so bear with me. I'm just going to leave this here. If you want to, you can look at it, and I'll be right back. Give me a second, please. How am I going to do this? Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to do... No, hold on. Give me a second. No, I'm not going to do that one. Sorry, stop. So, I just need a little beverage. Yeah, just bear with me, okay? So I hope I didn't scare anybody away. I'm sorry if I did. There's nothing much I can do about it. I just feel like I have to call out what I have to call out. And sometimes it's not pretty. Anyway. So, like when you wake up in the morning and you start doing your things and you get up and, I don't know, wash, have some breakfast, scrape out your eyeballs, shake the body a little bit, loosen it all up and get on with your day. It might help to think like, oh, well, during the Gemini season, I'm like an antenna. Okay? An antenna for like a transmitter system and a receiver system. Oh, I'm a transceiver. I transmit energy, I receive energy. I transmit signals, I receive signals. Okay? That's how I look at it. Okay? So you might notice like an expanded perception of your ability to be a transceiver, and that if you've never noticed that part of your nature, you might start to notice it now. In other words, you would be just living your life and realizing, wow, I just had an amazing thought, a revelation. Okay. Sun in Gemini. Now I want to talk about it. Sun in Gemini. Actually, I think I want to think about it and share it on a big scale. Jupiter in Gemini. And I want to do it in a harmonious way. Wow. Let me think about that. Was that my hold on. Anyway, so I think we were talking about it recently, where we're much more than our three-dimensional body. You know, we have a mouth, we feed, we have eyes, our eyes, our nose, our ears, our mouth, and our skin for touch. You know, the five senses. But we have the pituitary. I think it's the pituitary, and there's the amygdala, I believe, thyroid. All these organs inside the brain that combined give us what we call consciousness. And when I think of Gemini energy, I think of consciousness. I think of our ability to exchange any energy from like moving our mouth and our lips and uttering these words and things that we call language. It's a mind-boggling phenomenon when you think about it. This little voice box moves the air around and vibrates it, and we shape it with our mouth and our tongue, and it comes out as what we call sound, because the air is vibrating between my mouth to your ears. And then we load up those vibrations with meaning, with intention that comes from here. And a lot of those things in here come from here. So to me it's just a mind-boggling phenomenon. The fact that we can communicate like this, the fact that humans can communicate with speech, in other words, speaking and listening, Gemini. And that allows us to have commerce, which is the exchange and trade of energy between people, just like doing business, like going to a farmer's market, going to, you know, a weekend festival, something like that, where you have lots of artisans and crafts. You take it on the mass scale, it gets kind of corporate and Capricorn vibes. But what I'm thinking about is the Gemini vibes, and that resonates very well with the Aquarius vibes, which is where we are now and where we're going to be for the next 20 years. So I'm thinking, let's just acknowledge and respect and honor this amazing thing that we have as creatures, where we can share and communicate, we can transmit and receive energy. Like with speech, well, I can transmit energy to you in the form of the spoken word, and you can hear it in terms of the spoken word. So I am transmitting and you are receiving. But sometimes you'll be chatting with me, like in a private meeting or something. You'll be sending energy to me and I will receive it here. And then we process it internally with our computers, our internal computers. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I look around and people seem to be just living their lives. I like to go to my McDonald's every morning. I go to different ones, but in general, my feeling is that, I don't know, I don't really have a lot of, I don't want to say the word friends here, but that's what it is. I live in a very, very isolated paradigm, but I'm still very observant and I participate. If I engage and interact with a person, then I do that with my whole being. But in general, I'm very closed in that regard. And what I observe, it makes me kind of sad, because what I feel that us here, we know and understand and share, is that even though I know people are waking up, I feel that there's a lot more people who are in a slumber. They're not awake. They're operating, they're functional in terms of the core components, everything from the neck upwards. So they might have their job, or they might be going to school or college. They eat, they sleep, they go through their bodily processes. They make babies, they get born, people die. All the general day-to-day activities are going on as if they are oblivious to what we know here on this channel. And that really puzzles me. In fact, it kind of frightens me and disturbs me, because you don't know how people are going to behave when SHTF, as they call it in the prepper world, when SHIT hits the fan. You don't know how people are going to behave. A lot of people are going to come completely unglued, like, oh, what's going on? What's going on? All these horrible bad things are happening. People like myself and yourselves, hopefully you're prepared, you're aware, because we're sharing information here. I'm sharing information that I extract from the world and my homespun astrology, and I try to share it in such a way that gives you a higher degree of awareness than you would have otherwise, so that it gives you a better chance to be you in this world, whatever that may look like. I try to ingest things from all over the place, all over the world, and what I've noticed recently is I've had multiple recent past lives in the military. I know it, I can feel it. I know that at some points I was built for combat, I was built for war, and I understood the risks, and that's just how I was built. But I've also had many other lifetimes where I was an artist, a writer, a musician, a poet, a father, a mother, a very, very sick person, a very perverted person, a very deranged, like sort of severe alcoholic type of person, just a horrible person. I also know that I've lived lives, past lives, where I've been very, not willfully dumb, but basically very simple. Let's just call it simple. Especially at the level of being a peasant, where the only thing I cared about is like, oh, what am I going to do to get the next meal? Oh, we have to farm. We have to do more farming. Oh, so everything becomes very three-dimensional, very mundane. And I feel like I've had lots of lifetimes like that. If you really open your heart with yourself and allow your imagination to open up, and it's not an imagination anymore, it's actual just it's perception, you'll start to realize that you've had many past lives as well, multiple variations, and the person that you are here today is like an amalgamation of the most evolved version of everything that you've lived so far. If you read some of those spiritual books, they say that, oh, our spirit signs a contract with heaven, with God, that when we incarnate in this new lifetime, we are going to wipe the memories of previous past lives, and we're going to start fresh as though we were born onto this earth for the very first time, and we're going to live that life to our fullest. In my journey as a reader, an astrologer, and so on, especially in the last 7 years or so, but I've been doing it for a long time, sort of on the side, what I noticed is that people go through chapters in life that are very traumatic and turbulent, where a common theme occurs where they're reliving some kind of past life event that had never been resolved or healed. And it's coming up in this lifetime, and it doesn't make any sense to them. And so the only explanation is that I've been here before. I feel like I've lived on this planet before, because that's the only way they can explain the experiences that they're having. And then they have to communicate that and share that in such a way that sounds totally like a crackpot, like you're insane. So a lot of people, as they evolve, they go through these thresholds of a three-dimensional existence, and then often through trauma of some kind, this three-dimensional existence is broken and shattered, and people open up to a multi-dimensional existence. I call it 3D. 3D is like, earth, air, fire, water, here, now. Money, stuff, food, eat, sleep, work, happy, sad. But there's much more than that. And I feel like on this channel, we operate in those frequencies. You have to be able to navigate through all of it simultaneously, because we live in a 3D world. But here, we allow that there are multi-dimensions on top of that. A lot of it you can't detect in the 3D world, but that's where we interface here on this channel. We interface between, like, for example, myself and yourselves. It allows, if you think of myself here or the channel, it's a way to interface so that you can indirectly access your own multi-dimensional experience, which might be harder to achieve or even know about without doing something like this. I mean, you could go to your local yoga center or something, or go to a metaphysical bookshop or something and start to get some awakening, but this is our version of it here. So I really enjoy it, and I'm very glad that you're here, and I'm very glad that I have this chance to be here for you. Okay, so the chat has been very quiet. I can't see anything there. It's, wait a minute. Oh my God. I'm sorry, my chat got completely jammed. Nah, that's probably what happened. So, people. Oh, so give me a second. I just thought it had gone very quiet and there's just one or two people here, but there's a few more. And my chat got jammed. Hello, Esther. Hello, Gregory. I got your booking. Thank you, Gregory. We can give you a reading in a minute. There's Necessary. Hello, Necessary. There's Anthony. Good evening, Anthony. Thank you for dropping by again. And there... Okay, oh, that's okay. Okay, so you've been chatting amongst yourselves. Okay. Okay. Okay, so there's a conversation going on about election day. Oh, yeah. That's a tricky one, isn't it? Well, okay. Okay, I see what's going on here. Mail-in ballots. Ooh, that's controversial, yes. Okay, I think there's a legitimate need in use for mail-in ballots, personally. The problem is that it's open to fraud very easily. Okay. Oh, there's Victor. Hello, Victor. Why are you the only one to hit the like button? I don't know. Okay. Thank you, guy. Okay. Oh boy. See, if you're a purist, luckily I can okay, so the American election, there's a lot of conversation. Oh, Karen. Hello. Karen down there in New Zealand. I'll give you my opinion on the elections. I'm just talking about America. So I just received huge piles of materials and packages for my mail-in voting ballot that's happening right now for Nevada to select a senator and a House congressperson and some local government positions. And there's a lot of work and effort they put in that allows for people to do mail-in ballots. So when you open it up, you get this big piece of paper with your selections and options on there. If you've chosen to be a Democrat or a Republican or non-declared, it's different for each person, what kind of package that you get. And here in Nevada, you can have a mail-in vote if you want to. You can mail in early, or you can vote in person on the day. Now, it's a bit awkward because with the mail-in votes here, you fill out a piece of paper. It's the same piece of paper that they use in the voting machines, if I recall. So one year I tried to do it on the day. I voted on the day, and what I realized, I was going onto a voting machine, and I'm already utterly convinced and sure that voting machines are highly corruptible. But I put it on paper, so there's a lot of ambiguity, at least for me here in Nevada. I like to vote in person on the day on a piece of paper with ink, done by hand, and then I put it in the box. Okay, that's kind of a purist approach, but that's the one with the least potential for fraud. As soon as you go to the voting machines, they've already been proven to be completely and utterly open to fraud and manipulation, just software manipulation. And the voting machines, a lot of them are made by a company called Dominion, and that's owned by a Chinese company involving Hillary Clinton. Who knew? Anyway, it's now well established. If you follow what I follow, it's well established that massive voter fraud occurred in our country over the last 4 years. And that's not cool. And people are terrified, and I'm terrified, that a massive attempt at fraud is going to happen again in November, on November 5th in the United States. If you look at the charts and the astrology for that day, or that time, there are a lot of indicators of very, very, very nefarious stuff going on Extremely nefarious stuff. So we have, May, June, July, August, September, October. We've got about 5 months and a week or so. During that time, my feeling is that there's going to be certain politicians who are going to do everything they can to undermine a genuine, honest election. And because it's so obvious that there's potential for fraud, there are people who want to have an honest election. So there's huge momentum in my world. I'm not an active participant, but I've thought about it, but where you can be an observer during the voting. You can observe, you can be a participant, you can help the process go along to make sure there's no fraud. It's a huge operation, and where I'm involved, there are a lot of people who are stepping up to as observers to make sure that there is no fraud. So we don't know what's going to happen. Also, there's becoming such a huge discrepancy between the existing leaders and the potential alternative leader that the existing folks are starting to really get scared, and they're trying to figure out, how can we stop this other guy from winning the election, because he's wiping out the existing party. So I don't know what's going to happen. I keep thinking that there's going to be some form of civil unrest where the federal government gets to declare an emergency, a nationwide emergency. I'm sorry, nationwide emergency. We're going to have to go on to, what's the word? I forgot the phrase, when the military takes over. Not a military coup, but martial law. In other words, the president appoints the military to take over and run America. Okay, so that's a little bit of a scary phenomenon, but it's possible. So how does that happen? Well, you have to have a major crisis. You have to have a major emergency. So how does that happen? Well, I believe they're actually working on it right now. If you go back to what I'm calling the invasion, there are millions of people here already who are dedicated to destroying America, and one of the best ways they can do that is create a massive crisis of some kind before the 5th of November. A crisis so scary and terrifying that the president has to declare martial law so that the country doesn't descend into complete, utter chaos. In my world, there's plenty of people who are allowing for that scenario to unfold. Hold on. Karen, you made it in there. Oh, Karen, okay. No problem. Thank you so much. That's really all we're going to do. I've been talking way too much. That's the Gemini. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, expanded by Jupiter in Gemini, which makes even more and more, faster and faster and faster and faster. So there you go. Anyway, we're going to do readings now. We got a reading for Mr. Ross, and we got a reading for Karen Clark. Yay! Oh, we go all over the world. Karen, I have to tell you, I've been getting very sentimental for New Zealand recently. I feel everything about the ocean and all the trees and the mountains and the rivers and the streams, the luscious green land, all the animals and all the nice people. You have a lot of nice people there in New Zealand. The reason I think I like New Zealand is because it's like this hybrid place. I lived in England for a long time and over in Western Europe, and I got some of the culture, and some of it I like. And New Zealand, as far as I know, a lot of it that we know today has a strong Scottish, Irish, British type of influence. And of course there's the Maori. And I kind of like the Scottish, British, Irish influence. It's a little bit different from America. It's still an English-speaking country, but it's kind of different. I just love it. I just love your country, Karen. I don't know when I'll ever get back. You do it. You have the best bees and the best honey, for sure. Absolutely. All right, so I've been talking way too long. Let's go over here. Okay, we're going to put up a note for Karen. Over there in New Zealand. So we'll put that over here. First up is Mr. Ross. Cards are well shuffled, okay, but I'm going to shuffle in real time in front of you, okay? So, oh, I have to, give me a second, folks. I have to share something. I'm very proud of this. Mr. Ross, thank you for that link. It was a beautiful chart, very beautiful diagram that you were showing me. And you know, on this channel, we've talked about it a few times. I call it the Pluto cycle. And it is about the journey of Pluto around our solar system. And it takes about 250 years to do a full spin. We take 1 year to do a spin. Pluto takes 250 of what we do. And it's interesting. More and more people are waking up to the realization that the planets are closely correlated with history. Global history, especially when you look at Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. You can correlate big chapters in the history of people over thousands and thousands of years once you understand the patterns. It's an amazing thing. And what I've noticed is that in the money world, there are people that I like to follow who are very, 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 very smart about money. I trust them because they are self-made, very wealthy and successful, and they share their knowledge. They're not anyone out there, bankers or scammers, trying to rip you off with ridiculous so-called financial, let's say, opportunities. No. And so Gregory sent me one of the charts from one of these guys. The guy is called Mark Moss. He's amazing. He does finance. He's on YouTube. You can learn a lot. And Mark Moss, okay, there's Mark Moss, there's Michael Maloney, and then there's Ray Dalio. All of those people are very, very big in global finance. And there's a few others as well. And all of them have an awareness of this 250-year cycle. And they have noted in this 250-year cycle that it's like a perfect wave. It's absolutely perfect, and it coincides perfectly with the oscillation of Pluto. Round and round and round. Every 250 years, they've noticed that there is essentially what they call the birth and death of an empire. Now, it happens in multiples as well. So an empire might last for 250 years, or 500, or 750, but that's very, very long. Typically, anyway, if you want to think of America as the American Empire, we started 4th of July, 1776. Here we are, 250 years later, It's the end of the empire. It's the end of the empire as we know it, and I feel fine. Anyway, my feeling is that the empire as we know it is dying. However, it's not going to be dead. I feel that it is dying in order that it can be reborn into something new and beautiful that has never happened in humanity before, the way we're going to see it. Most of us here will have a chance to see it. Over the next 20 years, the world is going to change profoundly. The same way that the world changes profoundly every 250 years. Before the American Empire, there was the British Empire, and the British Empire went head-to-head with the American Empire. The British Empire went that way, the American Empire went that way, and so on and so on. The Chinese had their own empires within an empire. They had empires within the Chinese Empire. Anyway, it's a beautiful thing. And I was joking with Love Triber the other day. It's just like, this is fantastic validation for me as an astrologer, that I can pinpoint these things and I can write books about it like this. Okay? It's wonderful. And we can celebrate this as the beginning of the American Empire. But there are a lot of people who want to keep this thing going. There are other people who want to destroy this thing so they can build a new empire on the rubble of this empire. It's not going to happen, folks. It's not going to happen. The American Empire is going to implode as we know it, and then it's going to re-emerge in an upgraded version of the American Empire. And it will not be an evil thing. It will be a good thing, because this is a good thing. And we're going to reconstitute the Constitution, and we're going to redeclare our Declaration of Independence. It's started already. It's happening now. Anyway, back to that chart. Those charts are now very well established in the teachings of Mark Moss, Michael Maloney, and Ray Dalio. The thing is, they don't know that it's correlated with Pluto. But we know. We know. Makes me feel like, you know what? Okay, I'm not some rich dude multimillionaire, but I understand what's going on. And I feel very wealthy inside anyway. I've always felt extremely wealthy, blessed, happy, lucky. But we know something that they don't. And these people are super, super smart. They're so smart, and they're so in tune with physical reality that they have made themselves extremely wealthy, because they understand these cycles and how they work, and so they can trade their financial plans around these cycles. And of course, there are cycles within cycles. Like there's the Uranus cycle within the Pluto cycle. There are 3 Uranus cycles within one Pluto cycle, for example. Now, the Neptune cycle does not correlate. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. So I feel very, very proud for all of us here who we have a mutual understanding of what I'm talking about right now. It's really cool. That's because we're really cool. All right. So here we go. Yes, Karen. Oh, God, the chat is stalling out again. What the hell is wrong with my chat? Give me a second, folks. I have to catch up here. Oh, gosh, hold on. I don't know what happened with my chat. Hold on. Karen, I got that. I got Karen. Is there book Fluffles? I don't know. I've been talking an awfully long time. Fluffles reading. Thank you, Victor. You've donated. Okay. Okay, so I'm doing 3 readings. Fluffles is here. Okay, that's it. No more readings. No more readings, okay? Okay. Hold on. Give me a second, Fluffles. Okay. Okay. All right. All right, so that's it. I'm going to put out the notice. Thank you very much. But that's it for tonight. We're going to do no more readings. We got Mr. Ross. We got Karen. And then we're going to do a little one for Fluffles. Okay? All right, that's it. So I'll put these over here. Please be patient, everybody. All right, Mr. Ross. Here we go. The cards are well shuffled beforehand, but I like to go for the last second if that's possible, you know. Excuse me, I don't do jumpers and flyers. I am not concentrating, obviously, as you can tell. Let's have a look here. Okay, what's this? Let's go right here. So, Mr. Ross, you know the drill. You've been here many times. Gather around with our invisible friends. Super duper. All right, so I don't see any notes, so Gregory, I'm going to go blind, okay? What kind of messages do we have here tonight from Mr. Ross? Mr. Ross, as you know, everybody here knows that Mr. Ross has been going through a lot of transformations over the last few years. Actually, all of us have in our own way, but sometimes it gets pretty extreme. And we're always wondering what lies ahead. You know, there's so many unknowns, and people are terrified of the unknown. That a lot of times people would rather have horrible things in their life that they understand already, rather than cross a threshold into the unknown simply because of the fear of the unknown. They call it the what's that expression? Rather the devil you know than the devil you don't. Anyway, here we go. So here's the situation. Here's the challenges. Here's how we're going to handle things. Let's have a look at external influences. Now, we've got a lot of shifting going on. When we're dealing with these cusps, there's a lot of back and forth energy. What's coming, what's going, where have we come from, where are we going? Queen of Pentacles. Okay, I'm not going to say, oh, I wonder if you've met someone, but the Queen of Pentacles makes me feel here about like a very, very big, warm, fat hug message to you, Gregory, that please do not forget who you are. Please, please do not forget. You've put so much work and love into your world, into the people you serve, and the world that you serve. and you've done it in a very benevolent, generous, vigorous way, and in a way that's very, I would say, characterized by integrity, honesty, goodness, wholesomeness, well-being, kindness, because you have that ability to do so. The Queen of Pentacles is a custodian of extreme wealth. And I'm not talking about just money. I'm talking about the worldliness, the good things in this world, the good tangible things like honesty, integrity, truth, and balance and harmony. And I feel that the Queen of Pentacles in this reading is a reminder that you carry those characteristics, and it's very, very valuable. You may not realize how valuable you are to other people, perhaps clients, specifically some clients or close friends or something like that. But you do have that. You have great value, and it doesn't matter whether they acknowledge that or understand it or not. It's most important for you to be reminded that you offer great value to those that you serve. Okay? And that's a message from heaven. Okay? But the situation itself. Okay, so you've got the Five of Cups here. It may be, I don't know if you've suffered some sort of immediate loss recently, or if this is something that's very long term that has started to boil up, can come to the surface, where it's now an issue, and it might be something to do with, even though you might have these characteristics, and you do know what it's like to feel good, feel happy, and bring your benevolence to others, you might be suffering inside in that there might not be the equivalent perceived as coming to you as a reciprocal to this. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm trying to say it as simply as I can. Like this is big, bountiful, generous, responsible, kind, highly valuable energy that you radiate and you put out. My feeling here when I see the Five of Cups is that you might be going through a moment where you're feeling like it's not reciprocal. And that's kind of sad, because you deserve the reciprocal of this. I don't know if that makes sense. Now, let's have a look. What are the challenges here? Because this feels like it's a temporary thing. My feeling is that this suddenly jumped to the surface. A lot of it to do with the Gemini energy, like communications that you needed to hear from inside yourself are coming out. And let me be more specific. Maybe when I talk about the reciprocal, because this is very big, large-scale, kind, giant, generous energy, it would be nice for, in other words, it would be nice to be on the receiving end of a big hug from someone who really loves you. And you may feel that that's not available to you right now. And that would feel kind of sad and tragic. It's not the end of the world, but it might just, like, it might be just one of those things that just pops up. You know, every now and again. I know it happens to me, so don't feel ashamed or anything about it, but now and again I can be sitting in a car and driving or walking or something, and one tiny little thought that resonates with this could come to my mind, and I will feel very hurt, very, very hurt inside. Not angry, but just very hurt. And I can spontaneously come into tears just from that spontaneous thought occurring in my consciousness. So you're not alone, all right? Understand that. So what's the problem here? So when I see the Six of Wands, this is very much the card of a winner. So you may be feeling like nobody understands me. I'm not being appreciated. Nobody loves me in the way that you deserve at the spiritual plane, okay? In terms of heaven in this lifetime right now. In other words, it might be like, why? Why doesn't anybody love me the way I deserve to be loved in this lifetime, right now? And it might be simply because the challenge is that you don't feel like you're a winner in the way that you are. In other words, this indicates something very wholesome and valuable and good and benevolent that you naturally radiate, but that doesn't correlate to what other people might consider being a winner, where you would have the joy of being a winner. I don't know if that makes sense. And so if you're not receiving or sensing or feeling the joy of being a winner, however you define being a winner to yourself, whether it's like in business or relationships or money or something like that, or career or ambitions that have been achieved, success in something or other, and if that's not happening exactly how you want it or that you feel that you deserve, and it could feel very tragically painful. Understandable. So this Gemini transit that just happened, it's just happened right now, it might have like opened up a very old, deep wound for you that had not been really in your consideration for some time. How are we going to proceed? Okay. With the Five of Wands here, I don't want to diminish what I was talking about here and about how painful you might actually feel. You might get moments, you might be having a blast right now watching the show, but there's another part of you which might feel very, very grieved right now, especially for the self, for yourself. I'm not sure if it's to do with loss of someone or something, or a pet or a loved one or anything. I think this is more to do with personal aspects, but it is a reading about you for you. So the way forward is to understand that even though you might have this perception right now, remember Gemini energy moves very, very quickly. This could shift and change in a moment. And you might realize that you needed to hear this reading to understand that, like what they call the soft underbelly. This would be the part of you that's very sensitive and vulnerable, that you would normally keep hidden from society, perhaps even hidden from yourself, because you don't want to feel the sad things. But now and again, you've got to reveal it to heal it. And so if this reading is revealing something to you that's very, very, let's say, painful and sad and uncomfortable to the point of tears, then that it has a purpose. It's there for a reason and a purpose, because you needed to know that. You needed to know that you are a wonderful person. You are benevolent, kind, and giving, and inspiring, and provide stability to others, even if now and again you might not feel appreciated, or you don't feel like a winner, and you don't feel loved. It's okay, because you're going to go stronger from that. The Five of Wands indicates that it's like you're going to get back up on the saddle again. And I'm not going to say you're going to suddenly go out and be a winner in everything that you do. But with Wands and Wands here, let's say this is you falling off your horse. But inside of you, you have this strength, you have this resilience, you have this courage, you have this integrity, which allows you to grow stronger, okay, in the face of opposition in such a way that you will eventually feel motivated to get back to what makes you feel good and happy and having fun and feeling like a winner. And then you'll understand that, yes, every now and again you might feel very pained and tragic inside, but most people do at some point. We might have just hit a nerve today, and that's okay. Maybe this needed to be revealed. Maybe there's a particular, very finite, specific issue regarding this sense of grief here. And it just needed to be exposed, brought to the surface, defined, put into words, understood, allow the energy to flow through you, and deal with it accordingly. And then blow your nose into a handkerchief and become strong again and get back to your normal self again. Okay? Oh, I see your note there. Super right on TL makes sense. Thank you so much, Gregory. You know, sometimes when you get cards in a certain way, it's like sometimes I don't even want to deliver the reading because it might hurt too much, but I have to do it anyway. All right. Okie dokie, so I'm going to shuffle up here. Karen, you're next. Okay, so let's do this. Okay. Oh, phew. I'm getting a flashback to a reading I did many years ago. I was at one of my little coffee shops in Venice, California, right by the beach. I had that life. I was sort of like a hippie artist, actor, movie. I was in movies and TV for years. 20 years I worked in movies and TV. And in my off time, I love to go out in nature, hiking, going along the beach, bicycle riding, road trips, things like that. Anyway, one of my little neighborhoods, there was a little cafe where I would go very regularly. And I just happened to have a deck of cards with me for whatever reason. Maybe I was just looking at them, trying to study something or whatever. And then this guy comes up to me and says, are you a reader? I went, well, I read cards. You know, this is tarot readings. I don't know if that's any interest to you. And he said, yes, could you give me a reading? And I went, okay, sure, why not? Why not? Just for fun. Okay. So I did. And it was one of those things where in the reading, a lot of stuff came to the surface, and I could tell pretty early on in the reading there was a lot of pain. And I felt obliged to just call it out as it is. And we dealt with financial things, home, family, relationships, and stuff like that. And right near the end of the reading, the guy started crying. And I said, I'm sorry, man. Sometimes this happens. I mean, I'm just an instrument. I'm a transceiver. I just transmit and receive. I receive and transmit. And so I call it out as it is. And I don't embellish it or change it or manipulate it to try and make you happy or so that you can hear what you want to hear. And he was very forgiving, and he said, yeah, I think I needed to hear that. And no one ever told me to my face before. So I said, well, so I hope it helps you. And he was extremely grateful. He really, anyway, sometimes it happens, you know. So that was long ago. Wow. All right, let's see. We're going to read for Karen now, over in beautiful New Zealand. All right, so where are we? Where's my wonderful little map? Here we are. So we are transmitting live from over here in Las Vegas. And there's Karen all the way over there in the North Island of New Zealand. Right at the end of my tip of my pen, right there. Just above Wellington. Okie dokie. There you go. So what's that about? I know it's about a third for it. Because I've been there a few times. It's about 13 hours in an airplane, a jet. It's a 13-hour flight. All right, let's bless this deck. Bless every single card. We'll bless this channel. Bless all of you for being here. Bless all the softwares and the hardwares and the technologies, the microphones, the lightings, the cables, the internet, everything that allows us to do this. Okay? Thank you, Karen, for dropping by. Let's see what's going on. I haven't seen any notes, so I'm just going to go blind. We've worked together before. So if I recall, you have this beautiful, basically it's like an art gallery in town. And you are on the artists, I guess they do it every year or something. And of course, one of the beautiful things about New Zealand is that it's a very rich culture for artisans. They like artisan fabric, artisan clothing, artisan art, artisan beer, artisan food, artisan bread. A lot of handmade. It's just wonderful. I just love that culture. Anyway, cards are shuffled, so let's have a look. Let's see what's going on. Here's the situation. Here's the challenges. Here's how we're going to handle things. And let's have a look. Surrounding influences. Oh, so we have the Eight of Wands. So this is kind of an exciting type energy. It might be a little bit overexciting, almost like supercharged type energy. I'm associating this very closely with the sudden recent ingress of Sun and Venus and Jupiter into Gemini, creating harmony with Mars in Aries, North Node in Aries, Chiron in Aries. So you might be getting a surge of energy happening in your life where, I'm not saying things are lining up and it's going to be great and it's perfect, but what I'm sensing with the Eight of Wands for you is that there is like raw energy field out there for you that you can tap for your own ambitions and fun and excitement and purposes to be who you want to be in this life, in this world. For example, it might be to do with business or your art, or with love and relationships and family and things like that. Either way, the energy's there and it's available to you. How you tap into it, it's a whole other thing. It might feel like, oh, inspirational ideas, or fate is lining up for you in some ways that could supercharge things in a way that could work for you. It looks something, it could be fun, it could be exciting. Maybe you've had some recent developments in your life that are fun and exciting and inspiring. Let's have a look. What's the situation itself? King of Wands. Wow. Okay. So, this is a very powerful card. It represents mastery. Now it's the king, so it's very male. I don't know if you're dealing with a particular male, and it's benevolent for you in your life, in your world, or maybe something has happened with an existing male in your world, and that male is on your side or somehow beneficial to you. Typically, I don't like to personify these cards, even though they're very personal. I would rather read this as your own energy coming out, Karen, where you're starting to exhibit energy of the King of Wands, where you are either recognizing in yourself or other people outside of your world, outside of you personally, are starting to recognize that you have certain leadership qualities where you can inspire, you can lead, you can guide, and become a, let's say, sort of a figurehead in your community to whom other people look up. I don't know if that makes sense. It feels to me like if it's not happened, it's on the verge of happening, or maybe it's already starting to happen. Maybe something really good has happened to you where you're starting to come into your own energy, where maybe something happened with the shop or your business or your life or your world where you're getting a chance to really kind of strut your stuff, but not in a way that's arrogant or anything with the King of Wands. It's very much to do with very high levels of integrity, inspiration, courage, so that others recognize that energy in you. And I see that as a positive feedback loop. Like there's positive energy that's out there for you, and it's resonating with your own natural internal energy in such a way that it's like, oh, I'm really coming into my own here. I've decided to do something courageous and take charge and take lead of something, even if it means leaving something else behind. I'm not quite sure. Let's have a look. Let's have a look here. So, excuse me. Excuse me. So what are the challenges? Let's have a look. Woo! Oh, so, wow, look at that. I don't really want to say that there's a marriage or anything here. It makes me feel like with the Queen of Wands, this is also very powerful energy of inspiration and leadership, where, okay, I'm going to give you my personal impression of this. Look, this is an extremely unique type of reading here, Karen. It makes me feel as though you are rising into a leadership position or position of strength in some way or other. Okay, in the family, in the business, in the neighborhood, in the community. That involves recognition, where your true nature is shining in such a way that others recognize you, and it is appropriate for you to be rising up into these leadership positions. However, with the Queen of Wands energy over here, my feeling is that there might be a side of you which has extreme doubt, like, oh my God, like where you are actually undermining yourself, like, oh my God, I can't take charge. I can't be the boss of this. I can't assume the role of leadership and being recognized or voted into something, or being offering myself to a situation of leadership where I might be voted into a leadership position, because that would make me look very unfeminine. Because this is a very strong masculine energy, and you are female, so you might be feeling like, oh my God, I wish I could. It's almost like I wish I could swap this around, so I could be the queen, the goddess of blah blah blah, whatever it is. But instead, this is very strong masculine energy. Forget genders. So with the Queen of Wands here in this position, there might be extreme doubt inside yourself that is conflicting and confusing you, like, oh my God, if I'm going to go into this type of energy, are people going to see me as a dominating bitch who's turned into a megalomaniac, power-hungry bitch, and I lose all my femininity and beauty and power because I'm going on a massive ego trip over here? Do you see how that conflict could happen? Okay, so how do you move forward in that? In other words, obviously you don't want to be scared of yourself, but let's have a look. Move forward. Okay, it looks to me like it's an internal thing. So with the Seven of Pentacles here, it makes me feel that in order to, let's say, ride with the best version of this energy, however that translates into your life, your world, where you are, maybe you've had to reluctantly take on the position of leadership or something. However it manifests, the energy is there, it's available to you, but it might make you feel as though it's diminishing to your womanhood, your femininity. And that is makes me feel that this would be a very deeply buried internal conflict that you've never really encountered before. In other words, as a woman, why on earth would you be shy of rising into positions of power or having to take on great responsibility and leadership type energy? Oh, because women aren't supposed to do that. New Zealand people are like, oh, you don't, what's that expression? You don't want to be the tall poppy. You know, New Zealanders always cut down the tall poppy. If you're the sort of person who is taller, brighter, smarter, more capable than the rest of the community, you have to shut up and sit down and hide. Otherwise, the locals will strip you down from your arrogance and superiority. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh, tall poppy syndrome. No. So, you might be in a situation where you have an internal conflict that you never really had to deal with in such a specific, clear way before. And then you have to realize that, wait a minute, there's no reason I should doubt myself. That whole tall poppy syndrome, that's BS. You don't have to comply with that. And so, it's like having the courage to be your most awesome self, even if you have self-doubts that it makes you look a little bit too capable, or too strong, or too proud, or too much of a leadership position that you expose others, or you might feel that others feel that they are less than because you're so awesome. That's not your problem, and it's not your fault. And so you are left with trying to figure out, oh my God, I have been suffering from tall poppy syndrome. There's no reason for that. That's self-effacing. That's diminishing. That's basically destroying all the good energy that's here, even destroying your femininity. So, how do you proceed? The way I see it, with the pentacles here, you could regard those as value systems, like codes of contact, and what people regard as culturally valuable. And you have been born and raised in such a way that certain, protocols must be followed in New Zealand society. You're not supposed to take charge or go into the lead or anything, because then you show up other people for being weak losers. Okay? That's not a healthy attitude. And so you end up having to be with yourself, realizing that, wow, that's an unhealthy attitude. It's totally inappropriate. My best thing that I can do as Karen Clark is to weed myself in my own spiritual garden, remove these self-destructive policies, thoughts, concepts, cultural beliefs, so that my true value, integrity, wealth, talents, gifts, and resources can be optimized. So you can be the most awesome Karen Clark possible. But you're the only person who can do that, because it means having to rid yourself of false attitudes that are actually unhealthy and self-destructive. So the way forward is realizing, oh my God, I have to do homework on myself. It's my job. No one else is going to do that for me. And each time, the more and more you do the homework on yourself, the gardening on yourself, weeding the garden of the self, more and more value, resources, talents, and gifts will be allowed to blossom and flourish, so that this and this makes sense, and you no longer have to worry about this. Okay? And so you can live at your fullest levels of integrity, which is your birthright. You live in a relatively free, open country, free speech, democracy, and all that. And you have a right. You have a right to be the most awesome version of yourself. So let's go for it, okay? All right. All right. So I hope that helps you, Karen. Wow, that was a very interesting reading. Who would have ever expected a reading like that to come up? Wow. Okay. All right, Fluffles, you're up. I'm going to shuffle all these. Okie dokie. Okie dokie. I'm going to shuffle again. I also have to go on a pee break, okay? So bear with me. Gosh, I'm late. Sorry, I thought I'd be a little bit quicker than that. Okay, anyway, I'm here. I made it back safely. I'm alive. Let's have a look here. Oh, thank you, Karen. I love it when I get some validation from the person. Thank you so much. And thank you, Gregory, too, for the validation. All right, Fluffles, so you mentioned something about a client here, that maybe the deal is going to get stolen from you. Well, that's pretty nasty, but again, just look at the charts. Okay, Fluffles? So, we're on these cusp energies right now. And it's very natural when we're on cusp energies like this to oscillate between one side and the other. Like, Pisces, 29 degrees. Oh my God, am I going to get screwed? Am I totally deluded? Am I getting scammed? Do they think I'm going to scam them? Is somebody trying to scam me? Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. Self-doubt, self-doubt, self-doubt. And then you're right on the cusp here, almost heading into Aries, which would be a completely different energy. It would be the energy of, hold on a minute, I'm right. I know I'm right. I have the right to be me. I have the duty, obligation to be me and do what is right for me first. It's my right to be right. And I'm not going to let anybody take that from me. I've been hurt before. Aries, Chiron in Aries. Not only that, the North Node is in Aries, conjoined here. So there's a very, very powerful momentum to do what is absolutely right for you. That's you, Fluffles. That's you, anybody out there who's listening and watching. The problem with that energy is on the South Node here, where billions of us people have woken up and realized we've been duped and complacent and tricked and deluded into trusting relationships that we discover are not actually trustworthy. Oh no, oh no, oh no. South Node in Libra. Poor relationships, redundant relationships that are actually a burden, that are dysfunctional, not acceptable. What counts is doing what is right for you, Fluffles. Okay? Doing what is right for you is what is best for your client. So, perhaps with the Gemini vibes, things could get quite outspoken. Especially with Jupiter there, it might be impossible to keep your mouth shut regarding the truth. Before we even jump into the reading here, you might want to consider that between yourself and the client, again, I'm not an expert at these things, but before I even do the reading, I want to share something with you, okay? For whatever Fluffles, for whatever reason, I'm not rich and I'm not famous. I live on an extremely tight budget at a very minimalist level. And I've got skills that allow me to do that. I'd love to have more money or lots more money. But anyway, I've had many, many situations in my life where I've inadvertently been there for other people regarding very important financial matters in their life. Things like buying and selling cars, buying and selling homes, investing in big money, or dealing with government and banks regarding money, and so on and so on. It can be very, very intimidating, and it can be very frightening where people think, oh, I'm going to get screwed, I'm getting screwed, someone's going to screw me, am I screwing them? And so on and so on. And this might sound like very contrarian thinking, okay, Fluffles? But if you're frightened that someone's going to steal your deal right from under your nose, have you ever considered perhaps mentioning that to the client? For example, imagine I'm like a real estate agent or something, or I'm a car salesman or something like that, and I decided that my strategy for today is this kind of offbeat approach. And I go to the client and I tell the client, listen, you and I both know I'm a car salesman. I do what I have to do to sell cars. I know that a lot of people hate car salesmen. I understand it. Okay, I get it. But in order for me to do my job, I have to do what's good for you, the client. I also know that there are other people out there who would love to have your business. Okay? I am the car salesman, okay? And I am trying to earn your business. I believe that we have found a good match for you and that car. That car is good for you. You're good for that car. We can sort out the money, no problem. And for that all to happen, it has to go through me, the car salesman. You might not like it, okay? But in my opinion, you've got a good deal with a good car, the right deal, the right price, the right interest rates, and so on and so on. And I have no interest in messing that up. I'm trying to earn your business. However, I want you to be aware that there are other car salesmen out there who don't really care about you having the right car at the right price for the right interest rates. All they care about is closing the deal, getting you stitched up or as much debt as possible in a way that you're going to regret it later on. I'm just letting you know in advance. Sometimes it's very, very difficult to tell because we car salespeople are very, very good at these processes, okay? And I'm telling you, as a car salesman, I know everything that goes on. And I am being open with you, okay? So I'm just sharing that all in advance. And I'd like to have your business. I'd like to close this deal with you. We sign here, we do the paperwork, we do the numbers, blah, blah, blah. You get your car, I get my sale, and you walk away happy. You drive away happy. That's the goal here. Okay, so, Fluffles. I'm just trying to illustrate a strategy. And I've had to do this sometimes because I've worked in retail, very, very competitive retail, where I decided in a particular situation, I'm just going to splurge it all out there. Like what happens, like the shady stuff in the background or what happens. And in the end, I just want to earn your business. This is my job. This is who I am. This is what I do. So, anyway, thank you, Fluffles, for listening. That little story was for you. I hope it has some value. Now we're going to actually go and look into your reading itself. Okay. Last minute, here we go. I see your notes there, Karen. Weeding out people that don't share your values of truth and honesty. Excellent. Do not apologize, Karen. All right, Fluffles, here we go. So, what kind of message do we have here for Fluffles tonight regarding this deal where she's scared she might lose the deal to a thief? Let's have a look. Okay. All right, here's the situation. Here's the challenges. And here's how we're going to handle things. And then we're going to look at external influences. Now, I kind of pointed that out already with the chart, with Neptune being where it is, Capricorn, and all the new ingress with that powerful energy in Gemini. Okay, let's have a look. So, 5, 6, 7 of Swords here. Be extremely careful, Fluffles, because a thief is very nearby. Okay? You are very much at risk of being undermined by some nefarious external energy. A thief. Once you know that, forewarned is forearmed. Since you now know that you are absolutely at risk of being undermined, deceived by some sort of treacherous, nefarious, perhaps slimy, smiley, happy thief. Now that you know, you have to be on guard. You can't just be innocent and pretend that, oh, I've got the best deal possible. My client will simply figure that out for themselves and they won't go anywhere else. Okay? My sense with the 7 of Swords here is a strong indication that a thief is very aware that there's some good business almost attainable right there if they can get away with their theft, fraud, lies, deception. Maybe they have a silver tongue and they're going to try and steal your client. Okay. Here's the situation. King of Cups. So right now, you don't have to be smarter than anyone. What you have to do here, it's what really counts is you maintaining your integrity to the most extreme levels possible, where you hold your emotional energy in check. In other words, because you now know it's official, you are under threat from a thief. Now, this thief may be very, very capable, extremely capable, ruthless, treacherous, with all the silver, shiny language of betrayal that goes with it. And since you already know that, you have to stand in your strength, which means emotional integrity, which means keeping your heart center at its most powerful when you're under threat like that. In such a way, in other words, there's no point sitting at home or behind the desk or at the office or in a meeting with the client shivering in fear that you're going to get screwed over by the thief. You have to know already that this is your deal. You own it. You've worked for it. You deserve it. The client is yours. But the only way you can maintain that and keep that is by being completely, fearlessly open about the reality of this deal and the situation. In other words, you may have to inform your client that you are aware that someone is trying to steal this deal from right under your personal nose. Okay? Similar to the little story I just shared with you. Okay, Fluffles? Okay. To me, this is a very strong message that you are under attack, Fluffles. The reason you're under attack is because you might have something very valuable. You might have a client that is going to close a deal, who wants to close a deal, deserves to close a deal, has the capacity to close a deal with you, or someone like the equivalent of you, which would be a thief. And you have to know that in front in advance. And it's almost like you have to have the courage to make the client aware of the full spectrum of what the client is facing. And be right there with them. Like, dear client, do you realize that what we're doing is business? I'm here for you, and you've worked with me, so we're going to set up this deal. But are you aware that in my business there are people who are trying to steal my business from me? It happens. It happens all the time. It's competition. It's theft. Whatever you want to call it. And I feel it is my duty to be there 110% for you, dear client, so that I can earn your business. Because I believe that you will not find another person who will serve you as well. It's almost like you have to be prepared to say that. Like, I am the King of Cups. I maintain mastery in matters of the heart. Truth, integrity, honesty, love, compassion, and caring. In other words, in order for me to close this deal with you, dear client, I essentially have to give everything I've got to make this work. Because it's such an important thing. You have to be able to trust me implicitly, to the point where you would not want to do this deal with anyone else. Okay, I'm going to go back to the reading now. All right, so what's the challenges here? Fear of success. A deep, deep, deep fear of success and being the winner. Well, that's understandable, Fluffles, because you are basically under attack. But it's very, very subtle. It's not a direct attack. It's an attack from the side. It's an attack through deception, betrayal, lies, behind the scenes, thievery. Okay? All right? So, Fluffles, you are very, very much at risk here. On the other hand, when I look at the King of Cups, there's absolutely no reason to fear because you have this. You've got this. It just means maintaining the most extreme levels of integrity, strength, power, confidence in such a way that the client would not even dream of going anywhere else once the client understands the full breadth and scope of what's actually happening in this situation. In other words, if you tried to hide this information from the client, you could actually hurt yourself. So my feeling is that because there is the risk of failure, in other words, there's a deep, deep fear that you might not prevail, that you might end up losing this. You have to be honest with yourself and perhaps even share it with the client. Like, listen, client, I'm very good at what I do here, and that's how we've got this deal. But I have to tell you, I'm terrified of losing this deal because it's very important to me because this is my business, and I earn future business by maintaining very high levels of integrity so that word of mouth works in my favor, so that people understand that I am the go-to person for these deals. Okay? The only way that can happen is if I serve you well. Okay? Now, please understand, dear client, that there is someone else. There are other people who would love the chance to serve you well and steal this from me. And the way they would do that is by undermining me, for example, or offering terms of the deal that appear to be better than mine. However, I want to let you know that we're already operating at the highest levels of integrity and quality and value. And you need to know that. So if someone approaches you to try and steal this deal from me, it's very personal, and I want you to know that if they do steal the deal from me, the fact that they stole it should tell you everything about the nature of the other people. And then you have to ask yourself the question, do you, dear client, really want anything to do with a person like this? Okay? So how do you move forward? These are all legitimate situations, fears, okay, Fluffles? Okay, so let's have a look. Yes, Gregory, it is a kind of a battle. So, with the Lovers here, it's about relationships, it's about decision making, it's about very, very profound, big, big decisions. And in this situation, going forward, it's about signing a deal. And my feeling that for you, Fluffles, is that in order to get the deal, your client has to be appraised of what could or would happen if your client chooses to deal with this nasty piece of work that presents itself as a superior option. Okay? And so, in other words, it's like you have to have immense courage to be able to put it onto the client and say to the client, dear client, and in the end, you may be forced to make a very tough decision. Do you want to close this deal and have a relationship with me ongoing into the future, where I can be there for you in the way that I'm here for you now, at the highest levels of integrity, where I will make sure I look after you, dear client, so that you'll always get the best deal in every situation? Or do you want to allow yourself to be seduced by what might appear to be a better deal with someone that is inferior? This person, this entity over here, is by nature a thief. So if they are trying to steal from me, if they are trying to steal you from me, why would you not think that they're trying to steal you? Steal from you, dear client. Okay? So be aware of that. It's almost like, okay, it's almost like, yeah, you are, Gregory, thank you for the side notes there. That's very, very important. So my feeling is that I'm not sure how much of this you want to share with the client, okay? However, it's a very, let's say, brave, courageous alternative strategy to closing a deal, just in the way that I described in my own personal story, where you effectively put everything on the client, and then you trust in the client that you have built enough of a level of integrity and protection with the client that they appreciate you for having revealed to them, the client, how the client could easily be screwed over by someone who is treacherous by nature. In other words, if the other party, if the thief is willing to steal from you, Fluffles, what makes you think the thief is not willing to steal from you, the client? In other words, by stealing from you, the client, deceiving you, making you sign a piece of paper where the small print sets you up for a fall, or it ends up screwing you over in such a way that in the end you seriously regret going with the thief or the other party, okay? So, it's a very precarious situation. However, you're in a very strong position, okay, Fluffles? Okay, I just see some more notes, huh? Now this is a 6 of Wands, Gregory, over here. Okay, let's have a look here. Okay. And this is a 7 of Swords. Okay? Sorry, you might not see it. Okay. This one here, this is a 7 of Swords. Treachery. Theft. Okay? So, anyway, let me read your notes. It's Fluffles saying, yep, I need to likely deal with his broker, whom is trying to take the deal from me. Okay, got it? So you're very, very acutely aware. I may have to make nice with him, the broker, I guess, even though he doesn't know what he's doing on his side to save my side. Okay, I'm trying to interpret your notes there, Fluffles. Maybe you're dealing with a... Okay, so I think I understand what you're saying. There is a third party involved here. So, okay, so I understand what you're saying, Fluffles. It's that this guy, this other broker, is inferior, and he's going to have to use he will use nefarious tactics in order to try and steal the deal. He doesn't have the integrity that you have. And like you say, you might have to play nice with him, okay? Yeah, I've heard of these situations, Fluffles. So, from what I can see here, you might be dealing with a situation where a deep form of full disclosure may be appropriate between yourself and your client, where you make it very, very clear to your client about the internal dynamics of what's happening in the deal overall, in such a way that the client is fully aware of the battle that is going on behind the scenes, where you, Fluffles, are in a battle to close your deal with your client in a way that is beneficial and good for you and for your client so that you succeed. But in the end, it's the client who makes the decision. The client makes the decision, with whom do I wish to truly relate? Because it's a very profound decision. It involves, with houses, it involves a lot of money. Okay, I know these battles go on in the real estate world between brokers and dealers and lenders and all of that stuff. So I personally believe integrity and honesty and truth supersedes what might appear to be an awesome, too good to be true deal. Okay, so if such and such alternate broker presents a deal that appears too good to be true, to the point where your client says, oh my God, I'm going to have to go with the other person. Your client has to be made aware of the treachery that is happening. And it might be an idea to have like some kind of full disclosure. Okay, then it's very important that you have to keep doing what is the relationship dynamics are so important that okay, hold on. Okay, so all right, so you understand all the dynamics that you're dealing with. I'm not a broker, I'm not a dealer. You're obviously fully aware what's going on and that it is a battle. So it's almost like what you're disclosing to me here, Fluffles, what you want to disclose to the client. Like I was talking about earlier, maybe being your own devil's advocate, where you're presenting yourself to your client is like, dear client, please understand there are dynamics going on here that need full disclosure, because I have a certain way of doing business. In order for me to continue, I need good, very, very, very high levels of integrity and good word of mouth for me to continue to do what I do and be who I am, so that people come to me in the future knowing that they are going to get the best deal, because here is the alternative. And then you explain the dynamics of what's happening over there with this treacherous situation, so that the client fully understands, like, oh, wow, I never thought about it that way. Oh, phew, sure, okay. But if you can present everything in such a way that you're really not hurting anybody, you're just putting everything out there in full disclosure, then again, you are serving client to the highest levels of integrity. Okay. Oh, okay. It's amazing what goes on in the chat, isn't it? So anyway, gosh. All right, let's wrap this up here. Fluffles. You're obviously fully aware of what's going on. And obviously you're scared to lose. You don't deserve to lose. But you're fully aware that there's cheap shots, treachery, shenanigans going on the side, which is purely self-interest for this other competitor broker, regardless if their behavior actually undermines the client in the long term. So yeah, there is a thief. There is a very capable thief very close by. Keep your enemies very, very close. Know your enemy. Luckily, Fluffles, it seems like you're already on top of it. The way forward is, I think, is to present absolute clarity to the client so that the client understands the full magnitude of the deal and what the deal really means. It isn't just a, close a deal, get your money, thank you, goodbye. It's much more than that, okay? It's what the deal means for the future down the road, okay? Decisions, decisions, decisions. Big, big decisions. Yeah, it takes a huge amount of courage to actually put the decision onto the client, rather than trying to hustle and pull and deceive and betray and seduce the client into a deal. It's much more about here, okay? Okay, absolutely. That's the language we need, Fluffles. Thank you. I'm going to have an earnest, heartfelt, professional conversation with him. Let him know I am on his side and willing to work with whomever he would like me to in order to collaborate to keep his best interest at heart. Thank you, Fluffles. All right. Whew, that's tough, man. I just need to clear the deck, okay? All right. Well, it's been a very interesting evening. Thank you all for hanging out with me for all this time. Thank you for staying with me when I do my huge rant regarding the astrology. I'm going to tidy up. But for now, we're going to wrap it up so you can all get back to your Sunday night and have a lovely evening and a Monday for you, Karen. All right? Okay, let's have a look. I need to... What's this, Karen? Hold on, Fluffles. I need to read all this. I think I need to work with this guy and collaborate with him. Give him some control so I can get my control back and the client is taken care of in the end. His interest is my interest. Oh, that's beautiful stuff. That's beautiful stuff, Fluffles. You got this, okay? You got this. You're a winner. 6 of Wands. Okay? All right. Take care, everybody. I'm going to wrap up here. Hello. I just finished my show. It went on long. I was talking a lot. All that Gemini.
There you go. Alright, I will be home shortly.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was just out blinking.
Yeah, I'm probably just, I'm not very hungry. I feel kind of queasy.
Alright,
So,
well then.
has to be. I just want to eat French fries.
Alright, well then I will let you do your own thing. You want to do dinner?
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll see you in a bit. What, like 20 minutes, an hour, half an hour?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Be good. Bye.